And unfortunately, this week, like most weeks, we have another broken campaign promise to reflect on. You remember that thing that Obama said about transparency, right? That his administration would be the most open and transparent administration ever. Well, we've covered one example after another that's proven that to be far from the truth. And this week, the administration is at least being called out on it by Senator Ron Wyden. He's one of the few Democratic lawmakers out there that actually speaks up, that takes a stand for your privacy, your civil liberties, that seems to understand the dangers of a growing and secretive surveillance state. Now, he's exposed elements of the Patriot Act that were being abused. He took a stand against SOPA and PIPA, and he's blasted CISPA. And now this week, he's decided to take on a new battle. You see, Senator Wyden is also the chair of the Senate Finance Subcommittee on International Trade, Customs, and Global Competitiveness. Yeah, it's a long title, but it would make sense that somebody with that title would have access to details surrounding trade agreements that our government is making, right? Well, it turns out that the Obama administration isn't granting that access. Now, all this surrounds the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's an international trade agreement between 9 nations about which we know very little. We're going to get into more details next week, but for now, what information has been put out there shows that this agreement would ban Buy American preferences for U.S. manufacturers, and that it would create new intellectual property standards that would increase prescription drug prices abroad. Now, just those 2 things alone are a big deal. They would affect prices here in America, businesses, people. And yet the administration isn't being transparent about the negotiating process or the details with members of Congress that should be reviewing international trade agreements. Now, Senator Wyden says that even after his staff got all the appropriate clearance, they're still being barred from viewing the details of the proposals. But guess who isn't being barred by the administration? According to Senator Wyden, and these are his own words from this week, he says that, quote, the majority of Congress is being kept in the dark as to the substance of the TPP negotiations, while representatives of U.S. corporations like Halliburton, Chevron, PHRMA, Comcast, and the Motion Picture Association of America are being consulted and made privy to the details of the agreement. Isn't that nice? The corporations are being let in on the deal, but lawmakers aren't. Now, I guess that we could call this a trend for this administration because it sounds pretty similar to the way that they treated ACTA, the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement. Now, there's a lot of anger about this on the Hill already. On May 3rd, more than 60 House Democrats and 1 House Republican sent a letter to Obama objecting the Buy American ban. Then on May 15th, Congressman Darrell Issa leaked the entire draft of the intellectual property chapter from this deal onto his website to make a point about the need for more transparency. And now this week, Ron Wyden introduced legislation clarifying that the U.S. Trade Representative must consult with lawmakers during trade talks. Now, the idea that you would even have to introduce legislation for something like that, to clarify something like that, it's ludicrous. But like I said, it's just yet another example of the promised most transparent administration ever spitting on transparency and cherishing the veil of secrecy.